All right, y'all, in this video, we'll be going over the 90-90 position, how to set up, and how to pails, rails, both legs, both the external rotation and internal rotation of the hip. So assuming you've done your cars already for your hip, which you always should do before doing any sort of pails, rails of a joint, the way we can set up is I'm going to be in a seated position. I'm going to allow my knees to drop to my left, right? Bottom leg, left leg hits the ground first. This floating knee, this hip, I can raise up and pull back, and then I can adjust this left leg to get it out in front of me. 90 degrees at the knee, 90 degrees at the ankle, 90 degrees at the knee, 90 degrees at the ankle as the best of my ability from my perception, right? This is the 90-90. Now, I'm going to be moving around to give you a better look at whichever hip I'm targeting. You stay put wherever you're at. Before we dive into all of that, for those who are missing quite a bit of passive and active rotation, certainly an internal rotation, this back leg, again, being the one that's in an internally rotated position, can be the star of the show. It could be, regardless, even if you're targeting this external rotation, if this back leg is really bound up, you're feeling a lot of sensation in here, totally normal, totally fine. To take it out of the equation, something you can do is kind of heel toe that back foot to bring that knee forward to just completely get it out of the way so that we can target this front leg in external rotation. Totally fine. Another thing you can do is you can grab a yoga block, prop yourself up to create a little more room for your hips to be placed, and that can ease up some tension on this back leg internally rotated hip. And even if you're targeting this internally rotated hip, sitting up on the block, again, can create some space for you to explore more without any deep aching pain or sensation that may be holding you back from targeting said hip. All right. So you have options. There's a lot of people online that talk a lot of trash about 90-90. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's dependent on your preference. This is just an option for you. So again, 90-90 position, going to be targeting the front leg first in external rotation. I'm going to pivot myself so you have a better view of that hip as we target it. So I'm going to go here. So pelvis, hanging pelvis on the internally rotated hip. I'm going to drive that forward to square up my hips. I'm going to sit tall, and I'm going to pull my tailbone on this planted side back, and I'm going to lean straight and maybe even a little up, not forward folding over my front externally rotated hip and leg. All right. So how we deepen this, again, pelvis comes forward, chest up, forward up, pulling the tailbone back. You can kind of rotate towards that pelvis. You can find the right vector that works for you to get a deep stretch in that back outer hip, right? So we're in position. We're going to do this together, right? So hanging out, finding that stretch. Say we find a good spot. I'm not moving around. I'm not bouncing around. I'm not leaning in and bouncing back and forth. Once you find that stretch, just hang out there passively for 1 to 2 minutes, ideally 2 minutes, right? We're going to hang out here for another 15 seconds. We're going to do a decent pails rails together. And what that looks like is, say there's 2 scales, one under my ankle, one under my knee, right? When I isometrically ramp up from 10% to 100% safest max effort, I'm rotating at the hip so that my ankle is driving into the ground. Knee stays at 0 pounds on that scale the entire time. So I'm not driving my entire leg into the ground. I'm rotating the femur so that the foot gets heavier into the ground. 10%, 20%, 100% safest max effort. 3, 2, 1, flip. Pelvis doesn't move, body doesn't move. I rotate the opposite direction, rails contraction, so externally rotating even further, trying to get my foot up off the ground. Not doing this, I'm doing this, trying to get the foot off the ground. If you're in a true end range position, obviously it shouldn't move at all, right? So again, kind of checking in with your body, making sure that pelvis is driving forward a little bit, belly button over that medial quad, proud chest, leaning forward to pull that tailbone back, try and get a solid 7, 8 out of 10 stretch on that outer back hip. We're gonna execute a PAILs rails together. So at 10% effort, engage the stretched tissue. So that would be internal rotation of the hip so that the foot gets heavier into the ground at 10% effort. 20% effort, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% safest max effort, go. Squeeze, 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 drive, 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 squeeze a little harder. Foot is as heavy as it can possibly be, driving into the ground. Knee is staying right there, not driving the whole leg into the ground. Hold, squeeze even harder for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 100% safest max effort. Externally rotate as hard as you can, trying to get your foot off the ground through rotation. Pelvis doesn't move at all. Nothing moves. Squeezing your hip muscles on that left side as hard as you can, trying to pull that foot off the ground, make it as light as possible. Hold for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Sit a little taller, pull that tailbone back, lean forward, find that vector, find that new end range, and come on out. Just keep this position, right? I'm going to move so that you have a better view of what my body is doing. So you can very easily rep that out. Again, this is more for educational purposes than anything else. Now, back hip and internal rotation. Front leg stays here. How we get into a deeper internal rotation stretch and target that back hip. So my arms were here in front of me, out to the side, inside the triangle. I'm going to take my arm and place it behind me and that back leg, sitting tall. The pelvis, it was driving forward for that front leg. Now we're gonna allow that pelvis on the internally rotated hip joint to dip back. So this floating glute is falling backwards towards the ground. That's gonna open up some space. Knee stays here, everything here stays glued down. That arm is coming back to the side or behind me. And for a lot of people, you may be feeling it quite a bit here already. If you have a little more space to move, allow that hip to drop as much as it can, and then I'm going to rotate my torso towards that back leg, and I'm going to lean to my right outside and lean back. And I'm going to play with the vectors of leaning side, leaning back, rotating towards that leg, allowing the pelvis to drop down, not allowing the knee to come up, keeping it down. And I'm going to keep playing with those different variations, pelvis down, lean, rotate, lean the other way back, until I feel a good stretch. You can even feel it in the groin, front of the hip, side of the hip, a deep capsular stretch on that internally rotated hip joint. So hanging out here. For some of you, if you want to play with, I just kind of brought my foot forward, creating more of a 90-degree angle at that knee. I'm feeling it a little more there. Proud chest, rotating, leaning, allowing the hip to drop. So long as this feels safe, this is more than, usually for this internal rotation of the hip, it's going to be more than just how it kind of feels like when you stretch your hamstrings, where it's kind of like burning. This is going to be more of a deep capsular ache. So long as there's not any closing angle joint pain, we can hang out here. For some people, it's good to have a yoga block for this arm or this arm. It's normal for hands and arms, elbows, kind of get that tingling sensation of it falling asleep if you're not used to being in this position. And we're just holding this here for 1 to 2 minutes. Ideally 2 minutes if you want to get the maximum amount of, not effort, but benefits from doing this. So what a PAILs rails looks like in this position is, again, maintaining position, nothing else moves, it's all isometric contraction, pelvis stays where it's at. I'm going to rotate at the hip so that my foot is driving into the ground. You're trying to swing it through. If there's 2 scales, the scale underneath the knee does not change. We're not pressing down, we are scooping through hip rotation. Foot gets heavier into the ground. So we're gonna do that now, and then the rails is something to be mindful of is when we flip it up to 100% max effort, what you don't want to do, you're trying to pull the foot up, not the foot and knee, but just the foot. And what we don't want is for the pelvis to shoot forward when we do that. Keep the pelvis here. You're only trying to engage the musculature, not move anything else. Okay, So 10% effort, rotating at the hip so the foot gets heavier into the ground, 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% safest max effort drive for 15 seconds, go. Squeeze harder, squeeze harder, squeeze harder. As you maintain this, again, when I count up from 10 to 100%, it's your safest max effort. So if it feels sketchy at 60%, that's your 100% for today. If it feels sketchy, it is sketchy. Keep driving. If you're whatever percentage you're at, keep going, keep going, keep going. Drive, drive, drive. Make that foot heavier into the ground for another 3, 2, 1. Do not move the pelvis. Internally rotate as hard as you possibly can. 100% safest max effort. Trying to get that foot off the ground through hip rotation. Drive, 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 drive for another 10. Keep going, keep going, keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax the hip. If you can, allow the pelvis to drop a little more. Lean a little further, rotate a little further, lean back a little further, get a deeper stretch or deeper range of motion, and slowly come on out. All right. So that's external on one hip, internal on the other. What you can do is come back to the starting position, allow the knees to drop to the other side, bringing that back leg back. And we're here, we might as well do, I mean, we should and absolutely have to do both sides. So again, now my right leg that I just did internal PAILs rails on is now in an externally rotated position. Back leg that I did the external rotation PAILs rails is now on the internal rotated position. So I'm going to target, I mean, I'm already here. I'm going to target the front leg. So again, pelvis is kind of leaned back. I'm going to drive and rotate that pelvis forward. I'm going to do my best to rotate my torso to get my belly button over the quad. I'm going to sit tall. I'm going to pull my tailbone back. So it's anterior pelvic tilt, tailbone comes back. I'm going to rotate a little more. I'm going to lean forward a little more. I'm going to kind of dip my hip into the right side. I'm going to find the stretch that feels good for me. Hang out here. And again, this is a fairly advanced position. If you have 0 degrees of active range of motion, maybe 5 degrees of passive range of motion in internal rotation or external rotation for that matter, most people are missing internal rotation. This can be a pretty advanced position. So listen to your body. If it feels sketchy, it is sketchy. But this is a really, low barrier of entry when it comes to equipment because all you need is a floor, right? Super easy to do, just hanging out at home, watching TV. I'm in 90-90 position constantly, just kind of playing with the different vectors and sensations. Really, really, really good for you. All right, so now that we've been here for a minute or so, driving the hip forward, pulling the tailbone back, chest, proud chest, maintaining that vector. Isometric ramping, PAILs contraction. I'm going to internally rotate this front hip so that the foot is getting heavier into the ground at 10% effort. 20%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% safest max effort, drive, go. Squeezing through rotation your hip as hard as you can so foot is getting heavier into the ground, knee stays at 0 pounds. If there's a scale underneath it, drive, drive, drive for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction, externally rotating, squeezing your hip as hard as you can to get this foot off the ground. Squeeze harder, squeeze harder, squeeze harder. You can even squeeze the inside stuff of the quad, the adductors, squeeze harder, squeeze harder, squeeze harder. Trying to rotate at the hip to get the foot off the ground, maintain good position, try not to move the pelvis anywhere for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax, pull the tailbone back, lean forward, lean up, rotate even harder into it. 3, 2, 1, and relax. So again, my body has been here. I'm going to take my arm and pull it back, allow the pelvis to come back, readjust my knee, realizing it can be a little more at a 90-degree angle. Kind of moving around my yoga blocks. Yoga blocks are conveniently placed for me to put there. Allowing my pelvis to dip back, rotating towards that back leg, leaning back, leaning in, trying to find a good internal rotation end range stretch deep in that hip capsule. Definitely feeling it. If you're feeling quite a bit in like this outer hip, in this crunched up area where pelvis meets torso, totally normal. You may be missing quite a bit of abduction of the hip, totally fine. You can play with leaning back more, grabbing a yoga block. Again, getting your butt and hip up on a yoga block might open up some space for you to target this internally rotated position. Relaxing the hip joint into this position. I like 90-90s a lot because there's a lot of other internal rotation setups out there that hurt people's medial knee. This seems to be a pretty safe one for people's knees. Although if you're experiencing knee pain, you know, this may not be the position for you, and that's okay. There are options out there. I would recommend checking out the pelvis over femur PAILs rails position that I have on my channel. That seems to be a really, really good one for people as well. Okay, so now that I've been here for about a minute or so, right, I'm going to externally rotate this back hip so that my foot gets heavier into the ground. So if you're confused about internal, external rotation, just squeeze what's being stretched and squeeze your hip through rotation so that foot is getting heavier into the ground, knee stays where it's at, 10% effort. 20%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% safest max effort drive. Squeezing everything we can, even if you feel like you're not squeezing much at all, but things are firing and they're trying. That's all I want from you, is that there's an effort and that there's a conscious effort for the neural pathways to be created. Drive, drive, drive for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction, internally rotating as hard as you possibly can to try and get that foot off the ground, making sure that your pelvis didn't drive forward. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. If you're cramping, that's fine. That's great. Try and work through it. Squeeze harder, squeeze harder, squeeze harder. Get that foot off the ground through hip internal rotation for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Allow that pelvis to drop even more. Rotate, lean. 3, 2, 1. Come on out. Whew. All right, so that was the 90-90 hip internal, external rotation. I'm going to go into the opposite direction to give my hips a little break. Woo, that is good. All right, so you can rep that out if you're not used to training rotation in these extreme positions. Maybe only go up to 60, 80% if it feels funky. 1 rep is enough just starting out. Something I like doing is kind of being in this one position, doing 2 or 3 reps here, 2 or 3 reps here, switching other side, back and forth. To just kind of deepen the stimulus and open up the capsule even more if you have the time to do so. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Good job.